So I've tried semaglutide, I've tried tirzepatide, but I have not yet tried retatrutide. And I figured it'd be a pretty cool experience to figure out how it impacts my body compared to the other two. Now we all know that they affect your body in different ways depending on them because there's a single, double, and triple agonist. So I'm going to judge them on these criteria, which is going to be satiety, food noise, and general experience. Obviously, I can't work out right now due to being post-op day 19, by the way. For those who are new to the channel, I lost 158 pounds in a year and had a bunch of loose skin, which is why I had loose skin removal surgery. On that front, this is draining very little now, which is great because that means that it's going to be able to come out very soon. The site itself is so itchy, so I can't wait to get that out of there. But before we start the experiment, this is something only the OGs would know from this channel, but I'm one of the founders of Strongman Corp Canada, and we're having the Nationals today in Calgary to figure out who is the strongest woman in Canada, as well as the strongest amateur in Canada to see who's going to get their pro cards this year. Exciting stuff. So it's a little bit earlier than what I would like to wake up on a Saturday, but we're going to go shake some babies and hold some hands. Wait, switch that around. And then we're going to come back and we're going to figure out which one of the three is the best. So, although this is kind of cool to be able to test all three, I am a little bit worried just because the tirzepatide worked so well for me in my Crohn's disease that I'm going to be coming off of tirzepatide obviously to go on Reta, which means that I hope my symptoms don't get worse. So I was taking a decent dose post-surgery of tirzepatide just because I wanted to obviously, control the demons and stuff and just sort of make myself eat perfectly, but also because my Crohn's symptoms were getting a little bit worse pre-surgery. So as I documented here, I figured it'd be a easier way to just mitigate everything and control my gut post-surgery, which of course was important. Same breakfast as always. I feel like you guys should probably know what I'm eating by now. But this is actually the new Elevate cookies and cream flavor. There's actually little bits of cookies in there. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Yeah, there's like little, what looks to be Oreo chunks in there, which is pretty cool. I really like this one because I feel like you don't need anything else with it. You just eat it straight as is, no toppings or anything. The caramel one is interesting. It smells like super strong like caramel. And when you eat it with peanut butter on top, it just tastes like vanilla cake. It's weird. I have really messed up taste buds though. I've been eating the exact same thing for the last 2 years. So I guess the biggest thing about Reta versus tirzepatide is the glucagon control of it, which I don't know how well I'll be able to test for that function just because of the fact that I can't work out. So that'll be an interesting one. But I'm interested to see how it deals with cravings versus satiety because apparently the two are very different in that matter. And it's hard for me to imagine because when I went from semaglutide to tirzepatide, it was the same level of satiety control, except that the GIP came in, which means I wasn't really thinking about food anymore. Like that food noise was gone. Oh shit, I forgot to weigh myself. 44 makes sense at this time, especially since I didn't even pee yet. So for the Nationals this year, there was a few events, with the first one being a wheelbarrow carry where they had to bring over these wheelbarrows, load it up with a very heavy sandbag, and then keep on bringing it all the way to the end of the line. And that was the first event. The second event came in and it was an overhead press for reps. So you had X amount of time and you just wanted to do as many reps as you possibly could. Afterwards was the deadlift, where you can see this girl absolutely fighting for her life to lock it out. Pretty cool. And then was the yoke run, where you had to walk your yoke and then, because we're evil, load up more plates and then walk it all the way back. Last event being the sandbag to shoulder, where you have to bring it up to your shoulder, lock it out, relieve your other arm, and show that you are steady with it. At the end of the day, there was these two girls who ended up with a tie in their weight class for the pro card. So they had to do a sandbag over yoke until one of them could not do it. And this is the moment where you see that she won her pro card. It's a pretty cool moment. And it's just been really cool to see the sport grow over the last few years, because there was not that many people at the first Nationals that we hosted. And this is around almost 200 athletes showing up. And then came SWOLY, the strongest woman in Canada competition. This is always a really cool event to see. The women's side of the sport has been growing incredibly fast. And seeing some of these athletes perform at this level is an amazing feat of strength to see in person. Shout out to Sam Belleville for winning her 5th title of strongest woman in Canada. So I'm actually pretty excited about the whole Reta thing, because I've had so many people tell me, oh, it's so much better. It did this for me. It worked like this. And apparently it does feel very different than the tirzepatide, so I'm very excited for that. I did just want to make a note about like 2 videos ago with the therapy BetterHelp thing. I'm not sponsored by BetterHelp. It was just they offered to sponsor some of my content, and obviously I don't promote anything unless I try it first and have feedback on it, just like I'm about to do with Thoretta here. So no, I'm not sponsored by them, which is why I'm going to try it for like a whole month and see what it's like. I've seen some of the weird reviews on it, and I mean, I think that we can all agree that there's always going to be some bad within some good. There's probably some therapists on there that aren't the best, just as I'm sure there's some therapists in the real world that aren't the best and that are very over opinionated, we'll say. And I think that the one thing I read when I was looking into therapy in the first place was very much that you probably won't find your person on the first go, and that you have to figure out what type of communication you're trying to have and what type of person you want to have this rapport with. And that is different for everybody. So I'm very open to that experience. The first meeting that I had was just an assessment, but I do have to say that regardless of if the platform works or not for me or for anybody else, the fact that it was so accessible and right in front of me is probably the reason why I took the jump in the first place, because I don't know if I would have reached out for therapy or help and if it wasn't just right there in front of me. So no matter what happens, I'm obviously glad that a platform like that exists for some people that maybe don't have access to an in-person service. But look, we'll see. I don't know. I'm making these videos on the day, on the fly. There's no scripts anymore like I used to. Sometimes I'll have a scripted video. I have one that's coming out pretty soon here. Like, I guess that might be tomorrow, where I explain how grocery stores are completely psychologically planned to your trip and all this other stuff. But these videos are just almost like a documentary of what's about to happen, because yes, right now, of course, I can't work out, but which is why I'm documenting the post-surgical journey, we'll say. But this is just very much on the fly. So a lot of times I'll just read through comments and then, oh, that's a cool idea for a video, and then I'll just shoot that the next day. You know what I mean? So that's why the more that you guys comment, the more you ask me what you want to say, what you want to see, is that's what's going to happen in the video. Somebody wrote about making a video on inflammation, and I already reached out to a doctor and I was like, hey, you want to talk about this? And he's like, sure, when are you available, right? But concerning the clothing, tomorrow I have a call with Alex Toplin, who is, so he started Manifest Board Shorts, who has been completely taking over the bodybuilding men's physique category by storm, and they're blowing up. So I figured that he'd be a great place to start, to have a conversation with, before I then tried to talk to Christian and ask him the more complex questions about manufacturing and all this other stuff. So I know this is probably going to be another one of those short videos, but I'm going to be starting the Retta, and I guess I'll give you guys an update in a week, in 2 weeks, and then a month, and see how it impacts me, how the transitioning is compared to the coming off of tirzepatide into the Retta, and I guess we'll just go from there. But as always, thank you for watching this video, and let's change the world together.